Caitlin Clark grew up in a small town in Iowa, where life was simple and everyone knew each other. Her days revolved around school, basketball, and spending time with her family. Caitlin's parents were hard-working people. Her dad owned a local hardware store, while her mom taught kindergarten at the nearby school. They weren't rich, but they gave Caitlin everything she needed to grow into a kind and determined young girl. From an early age, Caitlin loved playing basketball. She would spend hours shooting hoops in her backyard, dreaming of one day becoming a professional player. But there was something else that made Caitlin different from the other kids in her town. She had a deep curiosity about God and faith. While most children her age were busy chasing after games or toys, Caitlin often found herself sitting quietly during church services, listening carefully to every word the pastor said. She didn't fully understand it all, but she felt drawn to the idea of a higher power watching over her. This quiet interest stayed with her as she grew older, though no one around her realized how much it meant to her. One summer evening, when Caitlin was just 15 years old, something extraordinary happened. It was a warm night and the sun was setting behind the cornfields that surrounded her home. After a long day of practice, Caitlin decided to step outside and shoot some hoops. The air was calm and the only sounds came from the rhythmic bounce of the basketball and the occasional chirping of crickets. As she focused on making shot after shot, Caitlin suddenly felt a strange sensation wash over her. It wasn't like anything she'd ever experienced before. At first, she thought maybe she was imagining things. But then, out of nowhere, she felt a warmth, a comforting presence that seemed to wrap around her like a gentle hug. It wasn't physical heat. It was more like a feeling of being completely safe and understood. In that moment, Caitlin heard a voice, not with her ears, but deep inside her mind. The voice was clear and reassuring, saying, "You are meant for more than you can imagine." Startled, Caitlin stopped mid-dribble. She looked around, half expecting to see someone standing nearby, but the yard was empty. Her heart raced as she tried to make sense of what had just happened. Was this real? Had she really heard a voice? Or was it just her imagination playing tricks on her? She stood there for several minutes, frozen, trying to process the experience. When she finally went back inside, Caitlin didn't tell anyone about it. Not her parents, not her friends, not even her older brother, who always teased her about taking basketball too seriously. How could she explain something she barely understood herself? Instead, she kept the memory locked away in her heart, revisiting it whenever she needed encouragement. Over time, the voice became a source of strength for her, reminding her that she was capable of achieving great things. That summer marked the beginning of a journey Caitlin never could have predicted. What started as a normal evening turned into a defining moment in her life. Though she didn't know it yet, the words she heard that night would shape her future in ways she couldn't imagine. For now, however, Caitlin continued living her ordinary life, practicing basketball, going to school, and attending church every Sunday. But deep down, she carried a secret, a divine message that whispered promises of purpose and potential. Little did Caitlin know, this was only the beginning. Life was about to test her faith, challenge her dreams, and push her beyond her limits. Yet through it all, the memory of that voice would remain a guiding light, helping her navigate the ups and downs of her journey. And as she moved forward, Caitlin would come to realize that her story wasn't just hers. It was meant to inspire millions. The days following that mysterious encounter with the voice were anything but easy for Caitlin. At first, she tried to brush it off as a figment of her imagination. Maybe she was just tired from practice, or maybe it was the warm summer air playing tricks on her mind. But no matter how hard she tried to convince herself otherwise, the memory of those words lingered. "You are meant for more than you can imagine." They echoed in her thoughts, especially during quiet moments when she was alone. Life, however, had other plans. Just weeks after hearing the voice, Caitlin faced one of the toughest challenges of her young life. It happened during a high school basketball game, a crucial match against their biggest rivals. Caitlin was playing her best, dribbling past defenders and sinking shot after shot. The crowd was cheering and her teammates were counting on her to lead them to victory. But then, disaster struck. As Caitlin drove toward the basket, she landed, awkwardly on her ankle. There was a sharp crack followed by searing pain. She fell to the floor, clutching her leg, tears streaming down her face. The injury turned out to be worse than anyone expected. Caitlin had sprained her ankle badly, and the doctor told her she wouldn't be able to play for months. For someone who lived and breathed basketball, this news felt like the end of the world. Her dreams of making it big seemed to crumble right before her eyes. Every day, Caitlin would sit on the sidelines, watching her teammates practice and play. Without her, she felt useless, invisible, and utterly defeated. Doubts began creeping into her mind. Was the voice real? Had she made it all up? If God truly wanted her to achieve something great, why would he allow this to happen? These questions haunted her, keeping her awake at night. Caitlin's confidence took a nosedive, and for the first time in her life, she questioned whether she even belonged on the court. Her parents noticed the change in her. "Caitlin," her mom said one evening, sitting beside her on the couch, "you've always been such a fighter. Don't let this setback define you." Her dad chimed in too, reminding her of how far she'd come and encouraging her to stay strong. But Caitlin couldn't shake the feeling that this injury was more than just bad luck. It was a test. A test of her faith, her patience, and her will to keep going. During her recovery, Caitlin turned to prayer more than ever. Every night before bed, she would kneel by her bedside and whisper heartfelt prayers. "God," she would say, "I don't understand why this happened, but I trust you. Please give me strength to get through this." Sometimes she cried while praying, releasing all the frustration and fear she'd been holding inside. Other times she simply sat quietly, letting the stillness fill her soul. One particularly rough evening, after a grueling physical therapy session, Caitlin felt completely drained. Her ankle throbbed and her spirits were lower than they'd ever been. She picked up her Bible, which she hadn't opened in weeks, and flipped it open randomly. Her eyes landed on Isaiah 41:10. "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God." The verse hit her like a bolt of lightning. It was as if God himself was speaking directly to her, reminding her that she wasn't alone in this fight. That moment changed everything. Caitlin realized that the message she'd received on that summer evening wasn't tied to her success on the basketball court. It wasn't about winning games or breaking records. It was about purpose, about trusting God to guide her, even when the path ahead seemed uncertain. Slowly but surely, Caitlin began to heal, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually as well. As the weeks passed, Caitlin threw herself into her rehabilitation with renewed determination. She followed every instruction from her therapist, pushed through the pain, and celebrated small victories along the way. Each step forward reminded her of God's promise, that he was with her every step of the journey. And though the road to recovery was long, Caitlin emerged stronger than ever. When she finally returned to the court, Caitlin was a different player. She played with a sense of gratitude and joy that hadn't been there before. Her teammates noticed the change in her attitude, and so did her coach. Caitlin wasn't just focused on winning anymore. She played with a deeper purpose, knowing that her talents were gifts meant to glorify God. But perhaps the most significant shift was in Caitlin herself. She no longer saw setbacks as failures. Instead, she viewed them as opportunities to grow closer to God and discover new strengths within herself. The voice she'd heard months earlier had planted a seed of faith in her heart, and now, through trials and triumphs, that seed was beginning to blossom. By the time Caitlin entered her senior year of high school, she had transformed into a leader both on and off the court. Her story of perseverance inspired those around her, proving that true greatness isn't measured by trophies or accolades. It's measured by the courage to rise above adversity and trust in something greater than yourself. Little did Caitlin know this was just the beginning of a journey that would touch millions of lives around the world. Caitlin's journey didn't stop after her injury. In fact, it was only the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with even greater challenges and opportunities to grow. By the time she graduated from high school, Caitlin had not only regained her confidence but also become one of the top players in her region. Her hard work and resilience earned her a scholarship to play basketball at a prestigious university, where dreams of professional sports seemed within reach. But as exciting as this next step was, it came with its own set of hurdles. College life was a whirlwind for Caitlin. Balancing academics, rigorous training schedules, and maintaining relationships wasn't easy. The pressure to perform on the court was immense, especially since her team relied heavily on her skills. Coaches expected perfection, teammates looked up to her, and fans cheered loudly during games. Yet beneath the surface, Caitlin often felt overwhelmed. There were days when exhaustion took over, both physically and emotionally, and she wondered if she could keep up with the demands of her new world. Despite these struggles, Caitlin never lost sight of her faith. She continued to pray every night, seeking guidance and strength from God. Her Bible became her constant companion, tucked away in her backpack alongside textbooks and notebooks. Whenever doubts crept in, Caitlin reminded herself of Isaiah 41:10, the verse that had brought her so much comfort during her recovery. Those words, "Oh, fear not, for I am with you," anchored her through the toughest moments. One particular incident during her sophomore year tested Caitlin's resolve like never before. It wasn't about basketball this time. It was about something far more personal. Late one evening after practice, Caitlin found herself sitting alone in the locker room with her teammate Emily. Emily was usually cheerful and outgoing, but that night, she seemed distant and troubled. Sensing something was wrong, Caitlin asked gently, "Hey, are you okay?" At first, Emily hesitated, but then the floodgates opened. Through tears, she confessed that she'd been battling depression for months. The pressure to excel academically and athletically had left her feeling empty and unworthy. She admitted that despite being part of such a celebrated team, she often felt invisible and unimportant. Hearing this broke Caitlin's heart. She knew exactly how it felt to question your worth, to feel like you weren't good enough. Without hesitation, Caitlin shared her own story, the voice she'd heard years ago, the injury that had nearly derailed her dreams, and how her faith had carried her through. For the first time, she openly talked about the divine encounter that had changed her life. As she spoke, Emily listened intently, her eyes wide with emotion. When Caitlin finished, Emily whispered, "I didn't know you went through all that. You seem so strong." Caitlin smiled softly and replied, "Strength doesn't mean you don't struggle. It means you keep going, even when things get hard. And I couldn't have done it without God." That conversation marked a turning point, not just for Emily, but for Caitlin as well. Word spread among their teammates about Caitlin's vulnerability and honesty. Other players began opening up about their own struggles, whether it was anxiety, self-doubt, or family issues. What started as a private moment between two friends turned into group prayer sessions after games. Caitlin's leadership extended beyond the court. She became a source of encouragement and hope for everyone around her. The impact Caitlin had on her team was undeniable. Practices became less about competition and more about unity. Players supported each other not just as athletes but as human beings. They celebrated victories together and leaned on one another during losses. Caitlin's influence created a culture of compassion and trust, transforming the team into a tight-knit family. But Caitlin's reach didn't stop there. Her authenticity caught the attention of people outside the basketball community too. During interviews and media appearances, reporters often asked about her impressive stats or game-winning shots. However, Caitlin always steered the conversation toward something deeper. She spoke openly about her faith, sharing how God had guided her through some of the darkest moments of her life. Her candor resonated with audiences, many of whom reached out to thank her for being brave enough to talk about topics rarely discussed in sports. Social media played a big role in amplifying Caitlin's message. After one particularly heartfelt interview, clips of her speaking about God's presence in her life went viral. Thousands of comments poured in from fans saying they'd felt inspired to reconnect with their own faith. Some shared stories of overcoming adversity, while others expressed gratitude for Caitlin's willingness to be vulnerable. One fan wrote, "Your words gave me hope when I needed it most. Thank you for reminding me that I'm not alone." Seeing the positive response, Caitlin decided to take her mission further. She started a blog called Beyond the Game, where she wrote candidly about her experiences, both on and off the court. Each post was filled with raw honesty, offering readers a glimpse into her struggles and triumphs. Whether she was discussing the importance of mental health, the value of teamwork, or finding purpose in unexpected places, Caitlin's writing struck a chord with people of all ages and backgrounds. Her blog quickly gained popularity, attracting readers from around the globe. Teachers used her posts as examples of perseverance in classrooms. Parents shared them with their children to teach lessons about resilience and kindness. Even pastors referenced Caitlin's words in sermons, highlighting her ability to blend faith with everyday life. Through her writing, Caitlin proved that true greatness isn't measured by accolades or achievements. It's measured by the lives you touch along the way. As Caitlin continued to rise in the basketball world, she remained grounded in her beliefs. She knew that her talents weren't meant solely for personal success. They were tools to serve others. Every game, every interview, and every interaction became an opportunity to inspire. Her teammates admired her humility, her coaches respected her dedication, and her fans adored her authenticity. By the end of her college career, Caitlin had accomplished more than she ever dreamed possible. She broke records, earned awards, and secured a spot in professional leagues. But none of those milestones compared to the joy she felt, knowing she'd made a difference in people's lives. The girl who once questioned her purpose now stood as a beacon of hope for millions. Little did Caitlin know her journey was far from over. The challenges she faced and the lessons she learned prepared her for an even greater calling, one that would take her message of faith, resilience, and love to the world stage. And as she stepped into this new phase of her life, Caitlin carried with her the unwavering belief that God's plans were always bigger and better than anything she could imagine. Caitlin's transition from college to professional basketball was nothing short of remarkable. She joined one of the most competitive leagues in the world, where expectations were high and scrutiny even higher. Fans packed arenas, cameras flashed, during press conferences and social media buzzed with every move she made. For many athletes, this level of attention could be overwhelming. But Caitlin approached it all with a calmness that surprised even her closest friends. She wasn't there just to play. She was there to make an impact, both on and off the court. From the moment Caitlin stepped onto the professional stage, it was clear she was different. Her skills were undeniable. She had a sharp eye for the game, lightning-fast reflexes, and an uncanny ability to read her opponents. But what truly set her apart was her demeanor. While other players focused solely on stats and accolades, Caitlin carried herself with humility and grace. She smiled often, spoke kindly, and always acknowledged the people around her, the teammates who passed her the ball, the coaches who guided her, and the fans who cheered her on. One of the first major hurdles Caitlin faced in the league was skepticism about her faith. In a world dominated by flashy personalities and self-promotion, Caitlin's openness about God was seen as unusual and sometimes controversial. Some critics dismissed her as overly religious, while others questioned whether her beliefs would hold up under the intense pressure of professional sports. But Caitlin didn't let the negativity faze her. If anything, it fueled her determination to prove that faith and success weren't mutually exclusive. Her defining moment came during a post-game interview after a particularly grueling match. The reporter asked the usual question, "What drives you?" Caitlin paused for a moment before answering. Then looking directly into the camera, she said, "God does. He spoke to me once and his words have guided me ever since." The room fell silent. Reporters exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. This wasn't the typical answer they expected. No talk of ambition or hard work, just pure honesty about her spiritual journey. The reaction was immediate and polarizing. Some praised Caitlin for her courage and authenticity, while others criticized her for bringing religion into sports. Social media exploded with debates, memes, and hashtags. Yet amidst the noise, something extraordinary happened. Thousands of people reached out to share their own stories of encountering God in unexpected ways. Many confessed they'd felt hesitant to speak openly about their faith but found inspiration in Caitlin's boldness. One fan tweeted, "I've never heard anyone say this in a press conference before. Thank you for showing us it's okay to be real." That single interview changed the trajectory of Caitlin's career. It shifted the focus from her performance on the court to the person behind the athlete. Suddenly, people weren't just watching her play, they were listening to what she had to say. Media outlets began inviting her to discuss topics beyond basketball, mental health, purpose, and finding meaning in life. Churches asked her to speak at events, schools requested motivational talks for students, and organizations sought her involvement in community service projects. Caitlin embraced these opportunities wholeheartedly. She realized that her platform wasn't just for showcasing her athletic abilities. It was a gift meant to uplift and inspire others. Whether it was speaking to a packed auditorium or chatting with a young fan after a game, Caitlin poured her heart into every interaction. Her message was simple yet powerful. You are capable of more than you think, and you don't have to do it alone. As her influence grew, Caitlin decided to take her mission to the next level. She launched a series of initiatives aimed at helping young athletes develop not only their skills, but also their character. Through workshops, mentorship programs, and online resources, Caitlin encouraged kids to pursue excellence while staying grounded in values like integrity, kindness, and perseverance. She partnered with schools and community centers to provide free training sessions, ensuring that no child was excluded due to financial barriers. One of her most impactful projects was a documentary titled Beyond the Game, which chronicled her journey from the small-town girl with big dreams to the global icon inspiring millions. The film highlighted the challenges she overcame, the lessons she learned, and the role faith played in shaping her perspective. It featured interviews with her family, teammates, coaches, and fans, painting a vivid picture of how one person's story could ripple outward and touch countless lives. When the documentary premiered, it received standing ovations at film festivals and sparked conversations worldwide. Caitlin's efforts extended beyond traditional platforms. She leveraged social media to connect with her audience on a personal level. Her Instagram posts weren't just highlight reels of slam dunks and trophies, they were reflections on life, faith, and overcoming obstacles. She shared scriptures, motivational quotes, and candid moments from her daily routine. One viral post showed Caitlin sitting courtside after a tough loss, writing in her journal. The caption read, "Success isn't defined by wins or losses. It's defined by growth." That single image resonated deeply with followers, earning millions of likes and comments. Despite her growing fame, Caitlin remained fiercely committed to staying true to herself. She turned down lucrative endorsement deals that conflicted with her values, choosing instead to partner with brands aligned with her mission of empowerment and positivity. She prioritized spending time with loved ones, attending church regularly, and volunteering in her community. Friends often joked that Caitlin was the least Hollywood celebrity they knew, but that was exactly why people loved her. By breaking barriers in the sports world, Caitlin proved that success wasn't just about winning championships or breaking records. It was about using your gifts to serve others, lifting people up when they needed it most, and leaving a legacy that transcended individual achievements. Every game she played, every speech she gave, and every act of kindness she performed reinforced this belief. As Caitlin continued to rise in prominence, she became a symbol of hope for millions. Her story reminded people that greatness wasn't reserved for the elite few. It was accessible to anyone willing to trust in themselves and in something greater than themselves. And though she still faced challenges along the way, Caitlin tackled each one with the same unwavering faith that had carried her through her darkest days. Little did Caitlin know, her journey was far from over. The seeds she planted through her actions and words were beginning to blossom in ways she couldn't have imagined. From classrooms to boardrooms, from playgrounds to prayer groups, Caitlin's influence was spreading farther and wider than ever before. And as she prepared for the next chapter of her life, she carried with her the knowledge that her purpose extended far beyond the confines of a basketball court. Caitlin's journey had taken her from the quiet cornfields of Iowa to the global stage, where millions now looked to her for inspiration. Her story was no longer just about basketball. It was about faith, resilience, and the power of believing in something greater than yourself. As her influence grew, Caitlin embraced her role as a messenger, a bridge between sports and spirituality, between struggle and triumph. But nothing could have prepared her for the moment that would solidify her legacy forever. It happened during a global conference on youth empowerment, held in a bustling city thousands of miles away from her hometown. The event brought together leaders, activists, and influencers from around the world, all united by a shared mission: to inspire the next generation. Caitlin had been invited to deliver the keynote speech, an honor she hadn't anticipated but accepted with gratitude. Standing backstage, she felt a mix of excitement and nerves. This wasn't just another interview or press conference. This was her chance to speak directly to people whose lives might be transformed by her words. When Caitlin stepped onto the stage, the audience erupted into applause. Thousands of faces turned toward her, their eyes filled with curiosity and anticipation. For a brief moment, Caitlin froze, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the moment. Then she remembered the voice she'd heard years ago, the same voice that had guided her through every challenge and triumph. Taking a deep breath, she began to speak. "Good evening," she said, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "I'm not here today because I'm the best basketball player in the world. I'm here because God has used my story to show others what's possible when you trust in Him." The room fell silent. Caitlin recounted her journey, from the summer evening when she first heard the divine message to the injury that nearly ended her career. She spoke about the doubts, fears, and moments of despair that tested her faith. She shared how prayer and scripture sustained her during the darkest times, reminding her that she wasn't alone. Her words were raw and honest, painting a vivid picture of a young girl who dared to believe in something bigger than herself. As Caitlin spoke, the audience hung on every word. Parents nodded in agreement, teenagers scribbled notes, and adults wiped away tears. When she described the night she randomly opened her Bible and found Isaiah 41:10, the entire room seemed to lean forward, captivated by the simplicity and profundity of her experience. "That verse changed everything for me," Caitlin said. "It reminded me that fear doesn't define us, faith does." She went on to talk about her teammates, her struggles with fame, and the importance of staying grounded in values like kindness and humility. She encouraged the audience to embrace their unique journeys, even if they didn't make sense at the time. "God communicates to us in ways we least expect," she said, pausing for emphasis. "And His plans are always greater than ours. When..." Caitlin concluded her speech with the phrase, "You are meant for more than you can imagine." The crowd erupted into thunderous applause. People stood up, clapping and cheering, many moved to tears. Caitlin herself fought back tears as she scanned the sea of faces before her. In that moment, she knew she had fulfilled her purpose, not because of the accolades or recognition, but because she had touched hearts. The impact of Caitlin's speech was immediate and far-reaching. Video clips of her presentation went viral, within hours, racking up millions of views online. Social media platforms buzzed with reactions from fans around the globe. Some posted screenshots of her quotes, while others shared personal stories inspired by her message. One viewer wrote, "I've been stuck in a rut for months, feeling like my life has no meaning. Caitlin's words reminded me that I'm part of something bigger." Another commented, "Her authenticity is so refreshing. Thank you for being real and showing us that faith matters." Schools, churches, and organizations reached out to invite Caitlin to speak at events. She traveled extensively, sharing her story with diverse audiences: students in underprivileged communities, corporate executives seeking purpose, and survivors of trauma looking for hope. Each talk reinforced her belief that everyone has the potential to overcome adversity and achieve greatness, regardless of their circumstances. Back home, Caitlin continued expanding her outreach efforts. Her blog, Beyond the Game, evolved into a full-fledged foundation dedicated to empowering young athletes. Through workshops, mentorship programs, and scholarships, the foundation helped kids develop not only their skills, but also their character. Caitlin partnered with mental health advocates, educators, and faith leaders to create resources addressing issues like anxiety, self-esteem, and finding purpose. Her goal was simple yet ambitious: to equip the next generation with tools to thrive in all areas of life. One of the foundation's most impactful initiatives was a program called Courts of Hope. It provided free basketball clinics in underserved neighborhoods, combining athletic training with lessons on perseverance, teamwork, and faith. Kids who attended these clinics didn't just learn how to shoot hoops, they learned how to dream big, work hard, and support one another. Many participants credited the program with helping them stay off the streets and focus on their futures. One teenager named Marcus later told Caitlin, "Before I joined Courts of Hope, I thought, my life was over. Now I know I can do anything I set my mind to." Caitlin's influence extended beyond traditional boundaries. She became a spokesperson for causes close to her heart, including mental health awareness, education equity, and community service. Brands eager to align with her values approached her for partnerships, and she used these collaborations to amplify her message. Whether it was designing sneakers with motivational inscriptions or launching campaigns promoting kindness, Caitlin ensured that every project reflected her commitment to making a difference. Despite her growing responsibilities, Caitlin remained deeply connected to her roots. She visited her hometown regularly, attending church services and reconnecting with old friends. During one visit, she organized a community event where local kids could meet professional athletes and hear inspiring stories. Seeing the joy on children's faces reminded Caitlin why she started this journey in the first place: to give others hope and show them they weren't alone. Her family took immense pride in her accomplishments. Her parents often joked that their hardware store customer base had doubled thanks to Caitlin's fame, as curious fans stopped by to say hello. Her mom proudly displayed newspaper clippings and magazine covers featuring Caitlin on the living room wall, calling it their wall of faith. Even her older brother, once skeptical of her dreams, admitted he admired her determination and grace under pressure. By this point, Caitlin's name had become synonymous with inspiration. People across the globe recognized her not just as a basketball star, but as a beacon of light in a world often clouded by negativity. Yet, Caitlin never let success inflate her ego. She remained humble, always crediting God for her achievements and prioritizing relationships over accolades. Friends often remarked that Caitlin was the same genuine person she'd always been, just with a lot more followers on Instagram. Through it all, Caitlin's mission remained unchanged: to remind people of their worth and potential. Whether through a game-winning shot, a heartfelt speech, or a simple act of kindness, she proved that inspiration knows no bounds. And as millions continued to draw strength from her journey, Caitlin Clark's legacy grew, one life at a time. Caitlin Clark's story wasn't just about basketball or faith, it was about leaving a mark on the world. By the time she reached her late 20s, Caitlin had become more than an athlete. She was a symbol of hope, resilience, and purpose. Her journey, from the small-town girl who heard a divine message to the global icon inspiring millions, was proof that one person's life could ripple outward and transform countless others. Yet Caitlin never lost sight of why she started this path in the first place: to serve. As years passed, Caitlin continued using her platform to uplift those around her. She expanded her foundation beyond the game into a worldwide movement, reaching communities in need across continents. The foundation built basketball courts in underserved areas, funded scholarships for young athletes, and provided mental health resources for struggling families. It also launched mentorship programs, pairing professional players with aspiring kids, creating bonds that transcended sports. For Caitlin, it wasn't about winning championships, it was about helping others win at life. One of the most impactful projects under the foundation was Courts of Hope International. This initiative took Caitlin's vision global, constructing safe spaces for children in war-torn regions and impoverished neighborhoods. These courts weren't just places to play. They were sanctuaries where kids could escape hardship, learn teamwork, and dream bigger dreams. Each court featured a plaque engraved with Caitlin's favorite verse, Isaiah 41:10, "Fear not, for I am with you." It was a reminder that no matter how difficult life seemed, they were never alone. Caitlin traveled extensively to visit these courts, meeting the children whose lives were being changed by her efforts. In one remote village in Africa, she met a young boy named Emmanuel. His family had fled conflict, leaving behind everything they owned. Despite the trauma he'd endured, Emmanuel lit up when he stepped onto the newly built court. He told Caitlin, "This is my happy place. When I'm here, I forget all the bad things." Hearing those words brought tears to Caitlin's eyes. She realized then that her work wasn't just about providing opportunities, it was about restoring joy and dignity to people who had lost so much. Back home, Caitlin remained deeply involved in her community. She partnered with local schools to create after-school programs focused on character development, teaching students the importance of kindness, perseverance, and integrity. Teachers reported noticeable changes in behavior among participants: fewer fights, more cooperation, and a renewed sense of purpose. One principal wrote to Caitlin saying, "You've given our kids something money can't buy: hope." Her influence extended beyond traditional boundaries. Caitlin collaborated with artists, musicians, and writers to spread messages of positivity and faith. Together, they created books, songs, and films designed to inspire audiences of all ages. One album, titled "Them Voices of Faith," featured collaborations with Grammy-winning musicians, blending powerful lyrics with uplifting melodies. Another project, a children's book called "The Girl Who Heard God's Whisper," became a bestseller, introducing young readers to Caitlin's story in a relatable way. Despite her busy schedule, Caitlin made time for personal connections. She responded to fan letters, attended charity events, and visited hospitals to cheer up patients. During one hospital visit, she met a teenage girl named Lily who was battling cancer. Lily confided in Caitlin, sharing her fears about treatment and feeling like she'd missed out on her childhood. Caitlin sat beside her, holding her hand and listening intently. Then, she shared her own story, the doubts she'd faced, the challenges she'd overcome, and the unwavering belief that kept her going. Before leaving, Caitlin gave Lily a bracelet engraved with the words, "You are meant for more than you can imagine." Months later, Lily sent Caitlin a photo of herself wearing the bracelet during her final chemotherapy session. "Thank you for reminding me I'm stronger than I think," she wrote. Caitlin's humility remained one of her defining traits. Despite achieving fame and success, she stayed grounded in her values. She still attended church every Sunday, prayed daily, and prioritized spending time with loved ones. Friends often teased her about how little she cared about material possessions. While other celebrities flaunted luxury cars and designer clothes, Caitlin drove a modest SUV and wore outfits she'd had for years. "Stuff doesn't define me," she'd say with a smile. "What matters is what's in your heart." Her authenticity resonated with people from all walks of life. Fans admired her not because she was perfect, but because she was real. Caitlin openly admitted to making mistakes and facing moments of doubt, showing that even heroes have struggles. This vulnerability made her relatable and approachable, breaking down barriers between celebrity and audience. Whether she was speaking to a packed arena or chatting with a stranger on the street, Caitlin treated everyone with respect and kindness. Over time, Caitlin's legacy grew beyond anything she could have imagined. Schools named gyms and libraries after her. Cities declared Caitlin Clark Days in her honor, and organizations awarded her humanitarian accolades. Yet, none of these recognitions compared to the gratitude she felt knowing she'd made a difference. Letters poured in from people whose lives had been touched by her story. A single mom finding strength to raise her kids, a soldier overseas drawing courage from her words, a teenager overcoming addiction thanks to her example. Each message reinforced Caitlin's belief that her purpose was far greater than basketball. As Caitlin entered her 30s, she began reflecting on her journey. She wrote a memoir titled Hearing the Whisper, chronicling her experiences from childhood to present day. The book became an instant hit, praised for its honesty and depth. Critics called it a masterpiece of inspiration, while readers described it as a lifeline during tough times. Through its pages, Caitlin reminded the world that greatness isn't measured by trophies or titles. It's measured by the lives you touch and the love you share. Today, Caitlin continues to live a life of service. Though she retired from professional basketball, her passion for empowering others remains stronger than ever. She mentors young athletes, advocates for social justice, and speaks at conferences around the globe. Her voice, once heard only by her teammates, is now a beacon of hope for millions. People of all ages, backgrounds, and beliefs look to her as a role model, not because of what she achieved, but because of how she chose to use her gifts. Caitlin often thinks back to that summer evening when she first heard the voice. She wonders, if she would have believed it then, that her simple act of listening would lead to such extraordinary outcomes. But deep down, she knows the answer. That moment wasn't just for her. It was for everyone she would eventually inspire. The words she heard, "You are meant for more than you can imagine," weren't just a promise to her soul. They were a call to action, urging her to step into a destiny larger than herself. And so, Caitlin's story continues, not as a tale of individual triumph, but as a testament to collective impact. Her legacy isn't confined to basketball courts or record books. It lives in the hearts of those she's inspired, the communities she's transformed, and the world she's helped heal. As long as there are people willing to listen, believe, and persevere, Caitlin Clark's voice will echo through generations, a whisper of hope reminding us all that we are capable of more than we can imagine.